Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFT Statistics, and this is your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. Back in Colorado after a really awesome week in New York at that Christie's auction, got to lead that panel with Snowfro and Tyler Hobbs and meet a lot of awesome people in the industry. Lots to talk about from the weekend, a bunch of great art sales. Also going to talk about this Worldcoin, which recently launched today as something like a $20 to $25 billion fully diluted valuation, as well as a little bit of what's going on in NFTs. Had some weakness kind of across the Blur ecosystem, but let's get right into it. Starting off with a quick market overview. Volumes were up a small bit to about 10,000 ETH of volume. In terms of prices, basically flat over the weekend, down a little bit yesterday. Doesn't show quite as much here, largely because we're at a point now where Azuki price has gone down sufficiently that it's not a huge weight in this index. Bored Ape Yacht Club CryptoPunks now account for about 50% of the index. Also, the prices go to OpenSea, and OpenSea lags Blur. It's hard to get the Blur prices because they don't have an open API. So I do use OpenSea, which can have a little bit of a lag. But looking at what was strong versus what was weak, we had some weakness in DGODs and Azukis and some strength in Clone X. This chart here looks at the percentage of trades, which are sellers dumping into bids versus buyers picking which NFTs they want, actually a percentage of volume. And you can see over the past 7 days, we're at 80% of the volume has been sellers dumping into bids. If you remove that massive spike we had after the Azuki Elementals reveal, this is basically the highest that ratio has ever been in. Midcap index down a small bit, mainly because of weakness in Opepen and VV checks. I just think the Jack Butcher ecosystem had such a rally following the thread guy kind of excitement that there's just starting to give back a little bit of what went up. Did have some strength in Kampai Pandas, up 22%. Wanted to touch quickly on Pudgy Penguins. Pudgies have been strong. While other projects have been weak, Pudgies have really consistently held this high threes, low fours floor price, and now they're back up to about 4.1. Over the weekend, Lucas said that they sold thousands of toys at Comic-Con. People really love the Pengus. If you check out some of the videos that are on Twitter, you can see huge lines lined up for Comic-Con. I just think that there's overall just a real positive sentiment around Penguins right now. Overall idea that they're using toys to create other revenue streams, are building something, and the NFTs aren't the business, they're just part of the business, and that's really serving them very, very well. Azuki, of course, really weak over the weekend, dip below 5 for the first time, really since the very first few weeks of Azuki. We're now well below the levels that Azuki was at, kind of at peak FUD after the doxing of Zagabond. And if you look at why they were weak, I wanted to see who were the wallets that bought and sold, and that one on the left is Matcha Big Brother, bought 35 at the beginning of the weekend. Overall net sold 144 and dumped 110 in one go. So really just kind of a huge just sale into the marketplace. Most of the buyers here are also flippers. This fourth wallet, I did notice OX4 7FE bought 31 of them, and that one appeared to be a Pimp Capital alt. That was just kind of my sense based on how the money was flowing from Binance and the amounts and the way this wallet has traded in the past. So did have someone pick up a bunch of Azukis who will likely hold them for a long time. One thing I always look at is what percentage or how many new NFTs that have never dumped into Blur bids get dumped every day. And you did have a little bit of a pickup. It's nothing compared to what we had in terms of Azukis after the Elementals reveal, where it got up to about 700 over the course of 7 days. But over the past 7 days, we have had about 100 or 110, which is pretty high. So more sellers who've held them for a long time dumping into bids for the first time. Now, one of the things I also wanted to look at was this idea of how long does it take a dump to get digested by the marketplace. A lot of people say, Machi has sold, so now that sell is over, you can buy again. The problem is that most of the people end up buying are also flippers too. Obviously, it's not the case with Pimp Capital, but most of the other buyers are also flippers. I wanted to look at when did the NFTs that OSF and Mando, kind of when they sold 74 Bored Apes in the middle of February, all into one bid, or all into a bunch of bids, but Machi bought a bunch of them. There were a couple other bidders. How long did it take for them to stop trading? And there were really only 3 or 4 that were done trading after that one sale. The median sold about 5.5 times, and really only about 30 of them were done trading in February. So most of them, it took multiple weeks before they actually found a real buyer who wasn't going to sell. Just a little bit more of the stats. Only 3 are still with the original buyer who Mando and OSF sold to. The median trade 5.5 times. On average, there have been 8.2 trades, and the median ape took around 3 weeks before finding a buyer that would actually hold it. All a long way of saying that once Machi sells, you still have that similar problem of airdrop farmers owning most of the supply who are going to dump again. I think they're just more anonymous and a little bit harder to track. In terms of art projects, not a whole lot of volume over the past 24 hours. Did have a really nice sale by Mac, really nice Gazer sale, which you can see here for 13 ETH. Over the weekend, this nice ribbed chromie squiggle sold for 11.5 ETH. We had a Meridian for 7.9, and then a Subscape, which sold for 4.55 ETH. If you look at the last trades on Subscapes, they've actually all been this Subscape, as traders have tried to kind of put in ETH bids and moved it around. So we'll see if this buyer holds on. Second thing to talk about is Worldcoin. Here you have Worldcoin tweeting that the Worldcoin project is now live. And then they had an introducing Worldcoin letter from two of their founders, Sam Altman and a guy named Alex. A little bit about what they said there. They said they wanted to create an identity and financial network owned by everyone, a reliable solution for distinguishing people, distinguishing humans from bots and AI. And you receive a token simply for being a human. What they basically do, what this token does, is they have a bunch of orbs distributed all around the world. And you need to go to a location where these orbs are. And it will scan your eyes and use that to determine who you are and that you are human. And if you are human and just one person, and you can never, of course, do it again, you get an account, and presumably for that account, you can get some of this Worldcoin token. They say at the end, they are trying to find ways to broadly share the coming technological prosperity, and they see that as a critical challenge of our lifetime, really cross borders to everyone who is out there. Here is a headline from CoinDesk basically saying that when they launched this token, which they did this morning, it spiked over 20% on major crypto exchanges. If you look at the price here from CoinGecko, you can see it's at $2.21, which based on the fully diluted valuation is already valuing this coin at over $23 billion. So the market already giving this attention. And as we know, crypto and NFTs, but basically crypto in general, is an attention game. It's about where is the attention flowing. And this is clearly one that people think will be relevant. Corporate Trash here, good friend of mine, producer for the show, said basically Worldcoin making orb locations in the US where people aren't legally eligible for Worldcoin. I think this is similar to how Apecoin and Blur Token basically said you had to check a box saying you weren't in the US because regulations are unclear and seem to be hinting that these types of tokens are securities. They're not essentially in line with regulations here. So it is kind of an interesting irony that they do have a lot of locations in the US where they have those orbs, even though you can't officially trade them here. Here are the locations, a bunch of them in Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, as well as Miami. And then here were a couple different stats that I thought were kind of interesting. Where are the individuals who have used this so far? So far, I think in the trial, about 2 million people used it. And you can see that more than 30% are in Asia, more than 30% are in Africa. So really interesting kind of spread through the developing world as well, which I think is their goal. And in terms of how the token is allocated, 75% go to the community, 13.5% to their investors, and then some to the internal team, as well as a bit of a reserve. So interesting stuff. Clearly a lot of controversy. All you have to do is look at Twitter, controversy around privacy and other factors, but did want to present that given what we know so far. Third thing to talk about, Jack launches Opepen set number 10. This is the art. As you know, Jack is launching 200 sets of 80 different collections of art. Each has its own unique feel. Some of them Jack does himself, some of them others do. And this is what they're going to look like. I think it's kind of it's an interesting one. It's not the most exciting art, relatively speaking, but you can see it's already entirely sold out. And I think it gets a lot more interesting when you read Jack's thread about why he kind of made the art this way. There's so much to it. He says, this is the 10th one. It's a special number. It's a neat ending for the first chapter. Not sure what chapters mean, but curious to see what second chapter is. 1-0, an obvious reference to computers, the underpinning of technology that gather us here today. Ones and zeros kind of make everything we are. He also says it's a special reference. His company is called Visualize Value, VV, and then VV, 5 + 5 = 10. So it's just more kind of relevance for him. And he wanted to do, as a result, an entirely binary visual approach, black and white, in honor of that ones and zeros. And I think that he did that in a really unique way. He said that he had thought about really making it a throwback to VV, to Visualize Value, using a lot of the Visualize Value art for it. He got 80% of the way there, but then threw it away. And I think that these images kind of do resonate a bit as someone like myself who really likes Visualize Value. And he said that. He said, people are going to like this art more, but it feels like going backwards. I want to look forwards, and it doesn't quite hit where I want to hit. So he ended up removing that. A couple other things he said is each edition of these 6 balances light on a scale of 0 to 1, with each extreme perfectly inverting the other, 100, 0, 80, 20, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what you get here with these images. So as always with Jack, just so fun to get into his mind, to understand kind of the thought process of a true creative, a true marketer, and someone who just kind of gets the world of design. So love to look into that. In terms of the prices, Opepen has stayed strong in this world where NFTs have largely been kind of trending downwards. This is a project that has done a good job just staying relevant, keeping attention, and having a bunch of holders who are on my Twitter, always talking about how great Jack is, always talking about how great Opepen is, and loving it. So the project seems to continue to do well. Lastly, let's talk about a few notable sales from the weekend. I'm going to throw in a Mythic Moonbird because I work at Proof. I think this project's awesome. And I thought this was really cool. This was a Fidenza cloak. What a cool trait. A cool trait. It's a cloak designed like a Fidenza. I love the hat tips to the culture that we are in, the NFT culture. And this one sold for 2.2 ETH, well above the Moonbird's floor. There really have not been a lot of Mythic sales. Supply's still, I think, below 300, but this was the highest sale so far. Actually, it was 2.2 ETH. So congrats to the seller and buyer there. A couple pieces to talk about from Bricolage. Helena Serene, sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. Both secondary sales. This one here sold for 10.3 ETH. You can sort of see on the right that the last sale was a couple years ago for 5 ETH. So an upsale for someone not every day. You see that. A little bit about this piece. She says it is her original pastel transcription from a painting by Petra Vodkin, processed by AI models trained on her own painting, cutout and GAN collage. So interesting stuff from her. And here's another piece, also a secondary sale, which sold for 9 ETH, called Towards the Spring Disentanglement, also by Helena. So awesome to see that. A little bit about her. This is just kind of on her super rare profile. She says, the psychologist Daniel E. Berger claims the most important aspects of art are novelty, surprise, complexity, ambiguity, and eccentricity. And Serene's GAN artworks have all 5 in abundance. This is a quote from Unit London. So cool stuff from Bricolage. Congrats to her. A secondary sale here from Omente Jovem. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I think it's Lysergic acid something. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but interesting title. A secondary sale here for 9.68 ETH. Omente Jovem said he wasn't going to be at the internet. He was going in the middle of nowhere, so wasn't going to have a chance to see who bought it. But he did mention that it is his first secondary auction that he's ever sold, and it's the second or third time that an artwork on the super rare contract was resold. So nice to see a 9.6 ETH sale. A little bit of some of Omente Jovem's past sales. Has had sales kind of in that 25 to 35 ETH range. At the peak when things were in kind of peak bull market, but still having sales in the 9-10 ETH range is nothing to scoff at. So congrats to him as well as the seller and buyer. Wanted to show this piece here called Goldfish by socmplxd, which sold for 7 ETH. Really cool illustration, really cool image, just ovals representing the goldfish, which I think is kind of cool. Other socmplxd sales. socmplxd is just a really fun illustrator, and has had sales as high as 15 ETH, and then a lot in that like 5 to 15 range. This was right in the middle, and this was a primary sale. A little bit more about socmplxd, making art about our ordinary lives, a multidisciplinary artist working professionally in the arts since 2008. And then one last sale to talk about, and this one is by Botto Project. When I was at Christie's, I actually met the team from Botto. Really cool, thoughtful, nice group of people. So love to see this. And this is a unique piece. I haven't seen something that looks like this from Botto, but this sold for 4 ETH. And again, they're putting out pieces every week. So love to see that they're still having nice sales. That is all from me today. I hope you liked the show. If you did, give us a like below. Tell us what you think in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and sign up for our Telegram group. We have a link below. That's the best way to get alerts for the show. We'll be back tomorrow and most weekdays with another show. Have a great day.